Just how much would it cost to build the Death Star in an orbit around the Earth? In this video, I'm going to give you an astronomical estimate of the cost. Hi there, I'm Dr. Barry Fitzgerald, the superhero scientist, and on this channel you're going to find videos about Star Wars, of course, superheroes, science, Santa Claus, and lots more topics. In this video, I'm going to answer the question, how much would it cost to build the Death Star in orbit around the Earth? And stay tuned to the end, where I'm going to give you 3 tips to help your Death Star building dreams become a reality. First off, we need to decide which Death Star we want to build, because there's been a few of them. I'm going to pick the Death Star from Star Wars A New Hope, which had a diameter of 160 kilometers, which makes it the smallest of the Death Stars that we've seen in the films. And this would make it the cheapest of the Death Stars to build. Well, let's see how cheap it actually will be. As mentioned, the aim here is to calculate the cost of building the Death Star in orbit around the Earth. We do have history with building things in orbit around the Earth. For instance, the heaviest object built in orbit around the Earth is the International Space Station, with a mass of 450,000 kilograms. Naturally, we're going to need a vehicle to get all the stuff into space, and there are some possibilities. First up is the Saturn V rocket, which was used to launch man to the moon in the late 1960s and 1970s. This was an extraordinarily powerful rocket. The only problem is we're not making any of these anymore, so it might be difficult to get our hands on them. Alternatively, we could wait for the Artemis rockets, which are going to be built to launch man to the moon and further afield. But they're not ready yet either, and it still very much has to be proven that it will work. Perhaps then we should turn to a technology that has been proven to work and been proven to launch things into space. That's why I think we should think about bringing back the Space Shuttle. I say bring back the Space Shuttle because the Space Shuttle last flew in 2011. And while the Space Shuttle has been retired for more than a decade, it's still inspiring vehicles in some science fiction films that kind of look like the Space Shuttle. For example, in the 2017 film Geostorm. By the way, Geostorm? Not a great film. Okay, so we've decided on the Space Shuttle as our launch vehicle to get all of the materials into space to build the Death Star. Let's dive into that cost calculation then. To start the calculation, let's find out how many times the Space Shuttle would have to fly in order to get the entire mass of the Death Star off the planet and into orbit around the planet. To calculate this, we're going to need 2 pieces of information: the maximum payload or mass carrying abilities of the Space Shuttle, and of course we need to know the mass of the Death Star. First off, what is the maximum payload of the Space Shuttle? Well, it's 29,000 kilograms, which to be honest sounds quite big. But how does that compare to the mass of the Death Star? Well, we're in for a little bit of a shock here, because the mass of the Death Star is 2.5 million kilograms. That is a very big number. Right, how many trips then do we need in order to get the entire mass of the Death Star into space with one Space Shuttle? Well, to calculate that, all you have to do is divide the mass of the Space Shuttle by the payload capabilities of the Space Shuttle, which is 2.5 million kilograms divided by 29,000 kilograms. And we would need to fly the Space Shuttle 86 million times to get the entire mass of the Death Star off the planet and into orbit around the planet. Right, that, to be honest, is too many trips. It's far more than I thought it actually would be. However, while this could be a logistical nightmare, we still have to calculate the cost. Perhaps it's going to be cheaper than we could imagine. In order to calculate the cost though, let's first of all find out how much it would cost to launch the Space Shuttle just once. To calculate the cost of launching a full payload with the Space Shuttle into space, we need to first of all know the cost per kilogram for that payload. Well, the cost per kilogram would be $54,500. Remember, the maximum payload of the Space Shuttle is 29,000 kilograms. This would mean that the cost per trip is a whopping $1.5 billion. Right, a single trip with the Space Shuttle, $1.5 billion? Yeah, that sounds a little expensive. I'm starting to get a little bit worried about what this might actually cost. So let's actually calculate how much it would cost to put the entire mass of the Death Star in orbit around the Earth. Recall that it would take 86 million trips to bring the entire mass of the Death Star into space with the Space Shuttle, and if the cost of one Space Shuttle launch is $1.5 billion, this would mean that the cost to put the entire mass of the Death Star in orbit around the Earth would be $130,000 billion. Yeah, I think we're out of luck on this one. I don't know about you, but I think this approach of using the Space Shuttle might be a tad expensive. Maybe we can ask Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos for the funding. You know, they've got a lot of money and they're launching small rockets into space. Maybe they could just take all the money from those projects and divert it into our Death Star building project. It sounds much bigger and better, and maybe they'd be interested in it. Maybe. But don't worry, if they're not interested in helping out with this brilliant project, I've got 3 tips for you that can help you with your Death Star building project in the future, and it could help to cut the costs because, well, let's face it, it's very expensive. Number 1, recycle, recycle, recycle. Since the 1950s, we've been launching rockets into space, and, well, when we do it, we've been placing a lot of rubbish in space too. Bolts, sheet metal, pieces of rocket boosters, and also there's some satellites up there which, well, they aren't doing anything anymore. Why not create an army of robots, send them into space, have them collect all of the space junk, and use that to build the Death Star? That way, you don't have to launch that material into space because it's already there. I think this is a great way to think sustainably when it comes to building a rocket or a machine, and this being the Death Star, that can destroy planets. Very ethical thinking, I have to add. Tip number 2, mine the moon, mine the asteroids, and mine the solar system. The solar system is filled with loads of bodies. There's the Earth, the moon, asteroid belt, the other planets, and they're all made of different substances, many of which we could use to, you guessed it, build the Death Star. I think you should build more robots and send them off into the solar system to look for all of those metals that you need. They can get them from the moon, they could get them from the asteroid belt, and then bring them all then to your location in orbit around the Earth and use them to build your Death Star. This is once again thinking a little bit more sustainably because you're not launching it off the planet, it's already in space. You might have to launch it off the moon or Mars perhaps, but asteroids, not going to cost you a lot to get the material out of the asteroids, but you still have to fly it to the orbit around the Earth. I think this is another way that you could cut the costs and take advantage of the materials in the solar system. And tip number 3, when it comes to building the Death Star, take your time. That might sound like a ridiculous tip because you want to have it now. I know you do. But yeah, take your time. It's going to take you decades, even hundreds of years to build it in orbit with existing technologies. And yes, of course, there could be advancements in technologies and rockets that could help it all happen faster, but it's still going to take decades for it all to happen. You can, of course, wait for the Artemis rocket that could also increase the payload capacities from 29,000 to 50,000 kilograms, but it's still not enough. So, tip number 3, take your time. And that's my astronomical estimate for the cost of building the Death Star in orbit around the Earth. I don't imagine that anyone is going to be undertaking this anytime soon, given the ridiculous costs in place. Plus, the Space Shuttle is retired, so you'd have to pull that out of a couple of museums and, fix it before you could actually start launching material into space. So, best of luck with that, because I'm pretty sure you won't get permission to use the Space Shuttle. Well, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. And of course, be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with the latest videos from the Superhero Scientist. I've been Dr. Barry Fitzgerald. Thanks for watching, and until I see you next time, always think super.